Welcome back to another episode of Bombshell1111 Girl Talk Series Podcast. Bombshell1111 is a platform created to teach ways to nourish the mind, body, and soul. This platform allows this podcast to create weekly content on podcasts with special guests each week that will stimulate your spiritual, mental, and physical growth. The podcasts are played on social media platforms such as Spotify, YouTube, Anchor Radio Station, Apple Podcasts, and more. This station has been created to allow us to interact with each other to share knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and light. So without further ado, please help me welcome your host and founder of Bombshell 1111 Girl Talk Series, Keya.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bombshell1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Keya, and I'm your host. Tonight, you guys, we have a very special guest by the name of Zachary Pritchard. He is a financial coach. So without further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and welcome him to the show. Hi, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for coming on to share so much knowledge that I know you're about to get ready to share with us. And we really appreciate you coming on and being part of the podcast tonight. So we can just go right ahead and jump right in. I did try to inform the audience and the listeners. I did try to previously inform them, of who you are, where you're from, and pretty much what you do. But I would rather you do an introduction so the audience can know pretty much who you are, what you do, and what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Zach Pritchard. I am a financial coach that I've been trained by the Dave Ramsey group. And so I've kind of been listening to him and following his principles since 2011. I went through college, paid half of my college in cash, just using his principles, and was able to come out and get everything paid off at the end of it. So that's kind of what is the base of my coaching program, is what I learned through going through that process. And so now I focus on helping couples really focus on the communication around finances in their marriage. And we kind of sit down and make sure they're having that honest conversations around the money that we all need to have, that sometimes we kind of postpone and so on and so forth. So I'm really, I'm glad to be here, and I'm really looking forward to where I can go and who I can help. So.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Zach, let's go ahead and jump right in. Why are you so passionate about creating financial security for others?
I think it's just key. I mean, it gives so much peace and so much security in our lives that we are missing if you're not paying attention to it. I think the normal life that people try and live, of the car payments and the credit cards, and following that credit game of wanting to have a good credit score and that whole aspect, I think it just destroys our ability to have the freedom that we want to have. And so when people get tied up in a lot of debt payments, they can't make the job choices or the career choices that they want, and it lowers our ability to choose what we want to do instead of we have to choose what we have to do. And it just creates that a level of stress that nobody wants in their lives, that they may not even be seeing right now.
So why should we all consider a money coach at this day and time, with how things are going, and then with the whole world changing, with us being affected with COVID and things of that nature? Why should we consider having a money coach at this day and time?
Yeah, so I think it's important. It's the same as if you had a personal trainer or a business coach or career coach. Anything that we all need. We're all human. We all need some level of accountability, and so it just helps. With I guess keeping with that structure, and you have these goals set that we all struggle to reach because we don't have that accountability. So even as a coach myself, we have our coaches, our financial coaches that make sure I stay on track with what I want to do, business coaches and so on, just because, we're human. We're not going to be able to, we can only have that self accountability so much, but we need that extra help, that extra kind of, and so that's probably the biggest point. But there's always those nuances that coach may be able to help you with that really can change your life, just by twisting a little bit of what you're doing and kind of helping you see it in a different light.
And coming from your we have an echo. I'm sorry. And coming from your experience with financial coaching and things of that nature, what would be 3 things that you would say that we should start doing right now with our money, beginning today?
I say be intentional about budgeting is the number one thing. So number one, budget, I guess. If you're not budgeting now, do a budget and make it in every or a zero-based budget. And what I mean by that is you have your money coming in and you want to budget every dollar going out. So whether it's going to savings, whether it's going to debt, whether it's going to restaurants or gas or whatever it may be, make sure if you have $4,000 coming in, then budget $4,000 going out. And that way you have a place, you have a plan for that dollar. And if you can stick to it, then it stays in that, on that path. And so that's probably the number one thing, is to budget. And then number 2 is, to find a why. So if you're, a lot of times we want to budget, but we don't really kind of stick to that why of, why are we budgeting? Why are we even thinking about the future? So I would suggest that you figure out a why. Like, what is your retirement dreams? What are your, 10, 15 year goals that by budgeting you can reach those goals? And so if you can find that why, you create you a visual, create you a whether it's a poster on the wall, that kind of shares a picture of what your retirement dreams look like, or maybe you want to travel and you have, several destinations that you want to travel, and it'll help you remind you why you want to budget so intentionally so that you can reach those goals. So having that why is a big thing for this process, because if you don't, then we all tend to find another reason or a better thing to do instead of budgeting or instead of doing whatever. So you have to have that why, and you have to have it written down somewhere that you can see it, so it's on your mind all the time, and it kind of helps remind you of that. And then number 3 would just be to communicate with your spouse or with somebody. Find some person that can be that accountability partner for you if you don't have one, but your spouse can be that, or your financial coach. But you want to create an atmosphere of open, honest communication. That way that there's no animosity between, like, hey, you're spending too much here, you're spending too much there. It's, have those discussions together, and we all can get better at basically everything. Nobody's perfect at anything, so we can all get better at certain things. And so when you're having those conversations about money, trust your spouse. If you trust them, they're not out to get you. They're not trying to attack you. So lean on that trust and build off of that and say, okay, he's saying that, it's coming across this way, but it may not be the way he's meaning it or the way she's meaning it. So let's have this conversation that we can kind of calm down and really build. I mean, I'll put it this way. Look at the kind of the concept of iron sharpens iron. If you both have ideas that you're really strong about, then instead of trying to say it's either my way or your way, then create a new way out of both of your ideas. And you can shave off a little bit of yours and shave off a little bit of theirs and create you a whole new path going forward, a whole new dream that both of y'all are tied into. So those are the 3 top things I would say that people need to be doing today to really give them a good start in that path of going forward.
Now, at the beginning of the podcast, you were saying that you also help couples or individuals have that conversation in reference to, financial coaching, money. Why do you think money is a tough topic to have a conversation about when in a marriage or a partnership and things of that nature?
It's
with your experience?
Yeah, so it's very touchy. It depends on where that person or how that person grew up with their money and how their parents handled it. If their parents handled it poorly, or there's two ways. They can either follow the footsteps of their parents, or they can go a complete opposite of their parents, just based on that situation. And especially if they've had some time to manage their own finances as an adult by themselves, then they have that pride in it and say, no, I've been doing this for so long. I want to keep doing it. I don't want to relinquish some of that control. But what people don't realize is that Clydesdale example where, two Clydesdales that are not trained together can pull 12,000 pounds. But if you put two of them that are trained together, they can pull like 42,000 pounds. So you think about the couple in that sense. And if y'all can align yourselves on the money aspect and just understand why you think this way or that way or where you want to take your money, then y'all can align together and really reach your goals. Number one, faster, and number two, with a better relationship at the end of it. Because if you're not talking about money, then you're fighting about it because there's no conversation about it. And money plays a role in every area of our life, no matter what it is. I mean, even if y'all want to go on a date, you got to talk about money, or, it's just that it's so encompassing. And so I get a lot of people that come to me and say, all we fight about is money. And so they want to have that conversation to help them communicate about money. But the issue, that's the symptom, is the money comes out as a symptom, not as the problem. The problem is the communication. They're really struggling to communicate on those deeper levels. Like, we can all talk about the weather, talk about our days, or our, what our weekends look like, or kids and so on. But, when are we having that honest, deep conversation about how we feel about certain things and how we feel about the money aspect? So I think that's a big part of it is number one, our pride that we have control over our finances, and it's that struggle to relinquish some of that control in a new marriage. Or, a lot of times there's past marriages and past breakups that failed because of the lack of communication around money. And so they just don't want to tap into that again with a new relationship. So there's several different, parts to that process and several parts of where that can fail. But yeah, that's where I'm really excited to go, is to really help people in communicating around their finances, not just looking at the budget, but looking at that communication as well.
So Zach, what was the best piece of it? Oh, we have another. I'm sorry, you guys. What is the best piece of financial advice that you received thus far on your journey as being a financial coach and helping others?
I think the number one is again that being intentional with your budget, with your money. Like, don't just try to fly by the seat of your pants, because it's gonna be gone if you try and do that. I think that's the biggest thing that's really helped me is starting that budget and sticking with it, because the first 3 months are kind of a struggle getting the habit of it. But once you get the hang of it, you can really manage your budget, manage your process. It doesn't mean, budget doesn't mean you're restrained to not spending money on fun stuff. Like, you get to choose what your budget looks like. And so that's the biggest thing that I remember, early on was, hey, I get to pick if I want to spend $200 on this or $200 on that. I can choose to do that, and I can choose to spend $500 on date night, or I can, you can do that within your own budget as long as you have the money. So, most people will say, well, I can just put it on a credit card or do that. I don't borrow debt, or I don't borrow money. And just because I don't want to create that stress level that debt creates. And so I think the biggest tip, the biggest piece of advice is to be intentional about budgeting, and don't be afraid to communicate what you're thinking to whoever is helping you do that, or your spouse or anybody in general.
Now, okay, so Zach, let's talk about the services that you provide. Can you let the listeners and audience know a little bit about what you do, how you provide those services, and how individuals can contact you if they desire financial coaching?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can do anything around money. So I call the companies all around financial coaching. So we're really talking about anything from budgeting to taxes we don't do taxes, but we help you make sure that you're bringing the right amount home every month. But the main thing that I do is I put people in a program, one of my coaching programs, and I walk with them through a 7-month process, depending on their situation. It could be longer, only if we need to focus a little more on the communication side of it first. Then we'll dive into the coaching program where we lay out the 7 layers of foundation and try and help build that foundation around your finances, so that once that's kind of set, then we can start to build the walls of the house, so to speak, and start investing for your retirement and your future, and really get a game plan on how that looks. But I like to stay with that foundation and really create that structure. So once we get through that foundation, then I kind of help walk people and coach people through setting goals on the financial side, and really just kind of help hold them accountable to some of those goals. And as they have questions, and I'm always doing new training and new recordings and stuff for them to learn different things in the communication world. Because as you get older in that process, and if you've got kids, then things change, and you have older kids now instead of younger kids, and you want to start teaching your kids how to handle money. And so there's that process of really being able to kind of help them along the way. So that's the main thing that I help them, is that one-on-one coaching program that I put people through.
So with that being said, what would be 3 quick tips on how to save each month?
3 quick tips. So plan your meals. Your meal planning is typically a big spender. So either you're spending way too much eating out, or you're just not focused when you go to the grocery store. You don't have a list, and so you end up spending a lot more than you really need. So meal planning is a big thing, and we do have on my blog, on my website, is a meal planning. It's kind of eating healthy on a budget, and then at the end of it, you can sign up to get a meal planning worksheet where it just kind of gives you some layouts of how to do that meal planning, and then have a grocery list that matches those meals, so that you can go to the grocery store and know what you need for the whole week, and be prepared for that. So I think that'd be number 1 is the meal plans. Number 2 is taxes. Like, make sure you're bringing home the right amount. If you get a big tax refund at the end of the year, you could be bringing home an extra couple $100 a month that could really help you in your monthly bills. You may not get that big check at the end of the year, but you're basically giving the government money for them to invest and for you not to use for a whole entire year. And so that's what I try and help people make sure they're bringing enough home, because a lot of times, it's just a couple $100 from when somebody could really, someone help somebody a lot in their situation. So that's number 2. And I think number 3 is just, again, being intentional, because if you have like miscellaneous funds and that type of thing, if you don't have an idea what need versus a want is, then you could overspend and impulse spend on those items really easily. So find out, kind of really think about when you're purchasing something, is this a need, or do I need it right now? Even though it may be a want, can you wait 2 weeks until next month when you have a new budget and you can plan for it a little better, instead of just kind of impulsing a lot of things like that. So that's I would say that's the third one, is just being intentional about what you're doing with your money.
Well, thank you so much for those tips, Zach. Do you have any events, webinars, trainings coming up soon that you would like for the audience and listeners to be on the lookout for, to check out for, or anything like that?
I do. So I actually have a free course on my website. It's 7 steps that kind of help get you started in this process with the communicating the budget and just kind of figuring out that whole process. And because sometimes it's hard to jump into monthly budgeting. So this one kind of breaks it down into weeks and kind of helps you walk through that and kind of get you a little bit of accomplishment as you go. So it's on my website. The website's aafinancialcoaching.com. And so it's right there on the homepage. There's a link that you can click, and it'll take you to the free course. And it's all free. So there's no obligation there, but it's just seven videos. They're short. I think they're 5 to 7 minutes long. So it's there to help you get started in that process. And obviously, if y'all have any questions, just feel free to give me a call. And if you're going through that process and have some questions about getting started.
Okay, thank you so much, Jack, for that information. Before we end the podcast here tonight, is there anyone that's in your support system like you would like to give a shout out to, a hello to, that could be listening tonight?
I don't know that I have anybody specific. I do have, my wife is one of the biggest support systems that I have, and walking through, with me getting this business started has not been easy on her. So I think that's, I guess I'd give her a shout out to helping me with that. So I appreciate it.
Shout out, wife. So Zach, before we end here tonight, I wanted to just also make sure that the listeners and the audience was aware of how to get a hold of you, where you're located. So are your services strictly online, or are you in person? How is your services provided for the listeners?
Mostly online right now. I will be I can do some in-person meetings, but mostly online right now. So you just go to the website. There's again, the free course is there. You can schedule a free strategy call with me. I do everything. The first call is just to really get to know you, kind of see if I can't give you some pointers on where to get started, how to get started, and get that process going. So you can go on there, just schedule a free strategy call with me if you want to just jump into it, and I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Okay. Well, you guys heard it here. Zach, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of Bombshell 1111 Therapy for Women. I appreciate the knowledge that you shared, and the listeners. Hopefully this will be very resourceful for them and those individuals who want to start businesses, have businesses, or just for their personal use. So again, thank you for coming on and sharing that information.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So tonight, you guys, we're going to end here. And again, thanks, Zach, for coming on and being a part of the podcast. Always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. And good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell1111 or at Bombshell1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.